went higher and farther than any humans in history.
Today you've made history and made all America really proud.
For 10 days, Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy inspired the world and captured the imagination of billions. 8.8 million pounds of thrust launched the Integrity spacecraft out of the atmosphere to the moon, around the far side, and back home safely, hitting a velocity of over 24,000 miles per hour before deploying parachutes and splashing down in the Pacific. And we're just getting started. Welcome to the Artemis generation.
Well, welcome everyone. We're so excited. I think, are we a little bit excited? Yeah. We're so excited to have you here, Administrator Isaacman, Jared Isaacman. Thank you for being here, and thanks for bringing the incredible Artemis II crew. It is truly such an honor to have you here. It is, it's hard to describe the courage, the boldness, the fact that you guys competed to do this, and how just three, I had the opportunity to talk to everyone on the way here. I mean, three kind of pretty normal but pretty overachieving Americans and a Canadian can execute this mission. I was just telling them, a lot of us have done some hard things. I have a very secret ambition that is now going to be not so secret, to be the first Green Beret in space. There we go. It can happen. And maybe if we really think big, we could have our first Security Council meeting in space, 200,000 miles above the Earth. But all jokes aside, these four great individuals just showed the world what we can do when we truly put our minds to it, and what we're capable of doing when we, as President Kennedy said, we don't do things because they're easy, we do things, great things, because we're hard. I want to take a minute and also thank our European partners, including many of you who are in this room. The European Space Agency contributed to the Orion service and life support module that kept everyone safe and healthy, so thank you. Artemis II also carried scientific and technology payloads from Argentina, the Republic of Korea, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Germany. And all of this was supported by communications dishes and other ground equipment in Australia and Spain, just like during the Apollo missions. So as NASA accelerates the pace of its lunar missions, and Jared, they're going to be going faster and faster, right? All right. As we head back to the moon, it has welcomed all kinds of new payloads and contributions from the private sector as well as all of our international partners. So I, for one, and I know many Americans here, were tired of hearing that the moon was out of reach when we first landed there a half century ago. And in fact, I could tell you that never sat well with President Trump. I'll never forget joining him for the Falcon 9 launch at the Kennedy Space Center. If you remember that, just 5 years ago, in my old congressional district, it was the first manned space launch on American soil on a private sector rocket with two colonels. They were Air Force and Marines, but that's okay. Colonels Bob and Doug, there you go, hoorah, in nearly a decade. And just like with Artemis II, a lot was riding on its success. Since the retirement of the space shuttle, we had been reliant on other countries to get people back up in space. So the president came, and I just want to share this with you for a moment, and then I'll shut up and let you hear from who you really want to hear from. But this is the power of what they just did and what happened even then. When President Trump came then in 2020, actually the launch was called off with 15 seconds to go. He immediately turned to then NASA Administrator Bridenstine and said, when are we going again? And came back the next week. And in the meantime, in between that time, sadly and tragically, George Floyd was killed and the nation erupted in unrest. But in the middle of that unrest, when we went for that second launch, watching those two colonels go back up into space from American soil, the entire country stopped and paused and came together and cheered those two colonels on. And that is what I love about the space program, and that it unifies us. There are no partisans in space. Heck, I think as you'll hear tonight, as they were looking back on the world, we are all fellow human beings, and we all have a shared humanity. I'll tell you, with this new space economy, this is what I'm so excited about, in that we now have, I mean, it's incredible. We have privatized space stations underway. We have a company that is slinging small satellites into space and conducting pharmaceutical experiments in zero gravity. We have limbs being grown. You know, the biggest impediment to, if someone needs a piece of a spine because they've been paralyzed or what have you, is gravity. And now that is happening, and those experiments are happening up in space. Even 3D printing that we're going to see when our base is on the moon very soon. So this new space economy is like the beginning of the internet. Really, truly, I think the world and the universe sits before us. I just have one more thing before I hand it over. Victor, if you'll come up here. One more thing before I hand it over to our 15th NASA administrator. Today is Victor Glover's 50th birthday. So I'm really going to embarrass the hell out of him. Will you join me in a birthday song to Victor? Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Victor. Happy birthday to you. All right. Thank you. Serenaded in the UN. Okay, with that, our 15th NASA administrator, the great Jared Isaacman.
Wait, Victor, get back up here. That was part of my spiel too. Well, now we're gonna wish you a happy. I'm just kidding. We were gonna do that. Thank you very much, Ambassador Waltz and distinguished guests. Thank you so much for bringing us all here together on this. I would like to begin. I was going to begin with a happy birthday wish. We got that, but by congratulating our Artemis II crew. So Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy. Congratulations. The entire NASA workforce, the Canadian Space Agency, and all of our industry and international partners on an outstanding mission that sent these 4 brave astronauts farther into space than any humans in history and brought them back safely to Earth. This was the opening act in America's return to the moon, and it was a great success. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. But first, let's also take a moment to appreciate really how far we've come. It wasn't that long ago, actually, President Trump established the Artemis program that ultimately led to the Artemis II mission, called for America's return to the moon. And in fact, in just 2020, President Trump established the Artemis Accords. Now, the initial framework was an agreement of principles between the United States and 7 other like-minded countries on the responsible exploration of space. Now, the Accords built on the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 and other core treaties by providing implementation principles, basically setting the rules of the road, operating transparently, utilizing common interoperability standards, and basically sharing best practices. Now, the Artemis Accords are co-led by NASA and the Department of State on behalf of the U.S. government. Now, under the close interagency partnership, in less than 6 years, there are now 64 nations across 6 continents that have signed on to the Accords, the most recent just yesterday, in fact. And as our alliance has grown, so has our ambition. At our ignition event, NASA, just last month, we outlined opportunities for Artemis Accord signatories to join NASA as we achieve President Trump's vision and establish an enduring presence on the lunar surface. And the plan is already in motion. So next year, Artemis 3 will launch to low Earth orbit and rendezvous with one or both of our commercial lunar landers to test... Artemis 3 coming up. So we're going to launch in low Earth orbit, we're going to rendezvous with one or both of our commercial lunar landers, and we're going to test out the interoperability between the spacecraft to learn an environment very close to home and buy down risk for what inevitably comes next. Artemis 4 will launch in 2028, a mission that will see American astronauts make the grand return to the surface of the moon, and this time, we're not just going for the flags and the footprints, but to build the moon base. This time, we go back to stay. Alongside our crewed missions, expect to witness uncrewed robotic landings on a near monthly cadence starting in 2027. There will be moonfall hopper drones on the moon, rovers testing crewed and autonomous mobility and logistics, instruments, power generation, navigation systems, communication, surface operations, and all the science payloads that can be incorporated. Every nation represented in this room and every nation that joins us has the opportunity to contribute meaningful science, real hardware, and other capabilities in pursuit of this moon base endeavor. Now, many have already spoken up, and many have already begun to make commitments. So think about that for a moment. Children from every nation under the cords will look up at the moon base with pride, knowing their country, their industry, and academia were among the great nations that helped build it. This is our opportunity to collectively achieve something extraordinary and deliver the headlines the world's been patiently waiting to read. There is no time to delay. We are in a great competition with a rival that has the will and the means to challenge the free world across the vast frontier. They're moving fast to claim the moon and limit its scientific and economic potential to really only those nations they choose. Success is not guaranteed, and the margin of victory will be measured in months, not years. Winning the second space race will require the best talent and collaboration from every Artemis Accords partner. And as long as we stay unified and move with urgency, we will return to the lunar surface, we will build the moon base, and unleash the golden age of discovery together and for all humankind. And the best part is that my children and your children and children across the world that are following along with every launch, watching on the Moonbase website, seeing what we are capable of undertaking and achieving, will be inspired to grow up and take all of us even further. So thank you, and I will now turn over to Ambassador Waltz and the Artemis II crew.
Thanks, Jared.
Well, first and foremost, and I think a lot of you have seen these now, I have a gift for each of you, which is the Make the UN Great Again, otherwise known as MUNGA hats.
Thank you very much.
There we go. There we go.
Thank
Please.
you.
Thanks.
There we go. Listen, it's so great to have you here. I think the first question I know you've been asked, I'll have a seat, is I know you've been asked 100 times, but we have to hear it again. When you looked back on Earth and in all its glory, often in all its conflict, you have to tell us what that felt like, what that looked like. Were you scared? Were you excited? Were you reflective? Were you prayerful? I mean, please. I know it's not the first time you've been asked, but we all want to hear it.
We'll all throw something out first.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for coming out. Thank you. This is amazing. To see all the little kids, to see some of the grown-ups with champagne. It is his birthday, by the way. I'm just saying. Wow. Thank you. It's so heartwarming for us. What we really, as a crew, we wanted to go for all and by all. And we wanted to set the stage for Artemis 3. Jared We wanted to get this space agency and this world ready for Artemis 3 and 4. But in the end, we really wanted to connect with humanity. We wanted humanity to just pause for a second and see that this world can still do something exceptionally well when they put their mind to it. So thank you all for being here tonight first. And now I'll hand it to my amazing crew to talk about Tiny Earth, because Tiny Earth is an incredible place.
You know, you asked how it felt, and it wasn't one feeling. For the entire mission, what we saw out the window was changing. And that is one of the unique things. But I will tell you, you know, some of the things that come to mind. I appreciate that you said prayerful. That may be one of the consistents through it, is that I always felt urged to just be grateful for what we were seeing and to be grateful for what we were eventually going back to. And the other thing was just how blessed we are to have this. And you don't always get to see it from the vantage point that we saw it. Not just the distance, but also how much nothing we went through to get to the far side of the moon. And when you spend a lot of time in the nothing, you realize how amazing it is to sit here and all of the things in your glass, that fact that it's still liquid is because of this thing we take for granted called the atmosphere. And I wish, you have to trust us. We are ambassadors of the cosmos. That is a miracle that we get to share.
It's hard to add anything of significance to what you've already heard, so I'll share another perspective, which is when you look out at the Earth and you see so much more blackness around it, it suddenly becomes even more special than it's ever been. And instead of this absolute background that just exists everywhere for us, because that's all we've had, and it makes the lines that we draw on it seem big and important, you realize that actually there's nothing absolute or guaranteed about this, and that actually there is such thing as a global scale. And this is the first time I've said that at the UN. But the truth is that global scale is our world, and what we do with it is our choice.
Something that I've really enjoyed relaying to people, I find it hard to find the words, but something that shocked me when I would look back at the Earth or the moon and then the stars in the background was the three-dimensionality of it. Every time I'd seen these things before, pictures of them, they're always like they were on a canvas. But being out there in space, they were no longer on a canvas. They were like in a diorama. It was like this weird thing where some stars looked closer in our galaxy than others, and it just kept catching my eye, and it just kept making me feel really tiny, really small as an individual. But then at the same time, I was out there experiencing it, and it made me feel very powerful as a human race, what we can do together, the fact that we were out there. And something that has been really heartwarming since we got back to Earth and started to see how many people stopped to watch the mission and resonate with it reminds me of all of you, and this is where we'll just reflect back on you for a moment. Every day people get up and they make a choice. Are we going to focus on the positive, or are we going to focus on the negative? Are we going to create this together, or are we going to destroy? And this is very meaningful for us to be here with all of you, because you are a group of people who get up every day and decide against all odds that you are going to create together.
Yes.
Were you running experiments the entire time? Like, were you busy the entire, were you able to really kind of just sit back and take it all in? What's going on as you're, are you actually flying this thing, or is the computer doing it? I mean, like, take us inside the capsule for a minute.
I can honestly say yes to everything you said. Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. Yes, it was busy, but yes, you had to stop and pause, and yes, we flew the thing by hand. But that's maybe one of the more unique things about this mission. Some of us have lived on the International Space Station, and you got weekends off. And we kind of had an off day. We called it an off day, but we did a lot of work on that day. But amidst the experiments, the science, the observations, the recordings, the drawings, the pictures, you can't help but to be taken by some of the things. And I'll say this, I know there are a lot of believers that really connected with some of the things we said and shared. And I will tell you, there were moments where, and also some of the believers also resonate with this, not using the Lord's name in vain. There were moments where the only appropriate thing to say was, oh my God.
So, I mean, just that one step further on that, did you not want to sleep because you not wanted to miss anything, or you have to make yourself, kind of take some downtime? I mean, I don't know. I would just want to take in every single minute and every single inch of it all. But you have to force yourself into a routine. I mean, you guys were, in a space about as big as this stage? I don't even know, if that.
Yeah, about the first 24 hours in space, we had two very short naps, interrupted by pretty major dynamic operations that we had to do to get ourselves on a trajectory out towards the moon. And we knew the first day and a half, the first 36 hours, we just knew that was going to be we were all in for the mission right there. We had to get this spacecraft pointed out to the moon. And then we all came together after we got our translunar injection burn done, and we knew we were heading 250,000 miles away from planet Earth, and we all made a pact that we now need to prioritize us, the four of us. We need to eat, we need to sleep on time, and it is hard to go to sleep on time. The work is amazing, the adrenaline is high, and you just want to stay up, you just want to keep going, but you have got to get into your floating sleeping bag that is tied to the wall, and some people would be upside down and some people would be right side up, because there is no upside down or right side up there. And we started to prioritize living as humans, and it was a very distinct moment on around the 36-hour mark.
So you're in a space half this size of this stage, really.
Oh, tiny.
Who had the most surprising or annoying habits, or anything you want to share? Yeah.
We showed up for each other. There was a lot of grace in that spacecraft.
We did talk about that before we went, and we've been training together for 3 years. So if you can imagine, day in and day out, already we're like a family, and then you put us in a small spaceship to experience something that we're not sure our brains ever evolved to experience, and we become best friends solidified for life. So the grace that we gave each other when someone knocked someone else's foot out of the way and needed to get to what they were going for, whether that was a snack or a sock or the bathroom door or a water bag, we knew going into it how to accept each other for exactly who we are. And one of the most beautiful things was just watching that happen and feeling it from your crewmates.
Yeah, I'll even give you an example. And one day I was really embarrassed. I was opening up some granola with berries after I'd rehydrated it in the morning, and Victor was floating kind of beside me and up a little bit, and just when I ripped the package, it just went too fast, and it flung stuff flying across the spacecraft, and it's like dotting his shirt. And I grabbed a tissue, and I'm like, oh, and he's like, oh, don't worry, I got this. And he takes his spoon, and he just starts eating it off of his shirt.
No,
we really developed new social norms. Like, we had our own culture, and we noticed when the Navy came on board our spacecraft after we splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, that they were actually awkward around us because we were so close together. We were like leaning against each other, and we were so used to touching each other that when the Navy divers came on and we started like leaning on them and touching them, they're like, whoa. So we realized we had our own social network there.
And they got their first whiff of us after 10 days of not showering.
That wasn't bad.
Might have been something else going on there.
No, I mean, with all of that pressure and with everything on the line and literally the entire world watching, you could have come out of that never wanting to see each other again. And instead, you came out with a brother and sisterhood, right? That I think we all could learn from. And what you just said really touched me, grace. Right? Grace for each other and forgiveness, even for all of the little annoying things. But even the big things, if you made a big mistake, you have to have each other's back. And what a lesson for all of us here as we're trying to work through the world's problems at the UN. So Anytime you were scared? I mean, coming in at what, 5,000 degrees, hoping those parachutes open? Yeah?
You know,
It's okay.
There's so many emotions involved across the spectrum. And we weren't experiencing it the way you may have seen it, the video clips and the pictures. It was continuous. It was a continuous experience, the thing that we had to like turn off to go to bed so we could take care of the human system and all of this. And there are so many emotions. The biggest one, well, not biggest, but when the main parachutes came out, I can tell you it was a ton of relief. That was a glorious moment. And a few moments later, we splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. And that was when I just finally exhaled. People had been asking for 3 years, are you excited? Are you excited? And when we splashed down, I think I like tapped you on the arm and said, hey, guess what?
Now I'm excited. The other thing, because there's so many kids here, we just have to stress, when you're coming back from the moon, when we hit Earth's atmosphere, which is 400,000 feet up, it's not that far off the planet. Airliners are flying a little bit below that. We are doing 6 miles. You might have to translate this into kilometers. We're doing 6 miles per second. So every second, 6 miles are traversing in our spacecraft.
10 kilometers.
A second. I love having engineers on board the spacecraft.
We are at the UN.
And when we hit the Earth's atmosphere, we're doing 39 times the speed of sound. Like the numbers are you just can't even comprehend them as a human.
Oh, I've got so many for you. You mentioned, and the administrator mentioned the competition that's going on. You know, I had an old saying that I was really proud the president picked up in one of his speeches. You can't be number 1 on Earth if you're number 2 in space, right? It's the ultimate high ground. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we're sitting underneath a prior competition, that we're sitting underneath the Sputnik satellite. There's a race to the moon. There's a race to build a base on the moon. And I think as we race into outer space, it's really going to be about the values that we take with us. But just walk us through, if you can, what's next in Artemis. You're Artemis 2. Right? What's next with Artemis 3? The administrator and the president have laid out an amazing vision for a base on the moon. Like, are you guys going to be there? Can we go with you? I mean, would that be 3D printing on the moon? Like, well, you know, paint that picture for us on what the vision is over the next couple of years.
I think a couple of us are going to definitely have a few words here. First, I just want to touch on like that was competition, but that was also motivation. Right. And that really put some focus into the world right there. So competition is not always a bad thing. It can be a very powerful thing. And then the other thing I wanted to say, especially to this crowd, is we had, not all, because so many people keep signing the Artemis Accords, but we carried a stack of flags of every Artemis Accord nation that had signed by the time we launched. And when we unfurled those in the spacecraft, we tried to we've got a little bit of video. I'll see if we can get it from our public affairs folks. It is the coolest thing being on this little spacecraft and seeing all the colors that represent all the nations that have signed the Artemis Accords so far. So I think at the highest level, at this level, when you're talking about what do we need to do this, that's exactly what we need. We need the world together, operating as one. You always say, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And the Artemis Accords are doing that.
You know, if I could, yes.
And the most recent country yesterday, Morocco.
Thank you,
I don't know if Omar is here. There we go. All right, there she is.
Awesome. And you know, Jeremy has some fantastic words that he usually shares about collaboration. And I just want to tie something together too. You know, standing here or sitting here underneath Sputnik, the first human to orbit the planet, Yuri Gagarin, launched on that same launch pad. And several years later, you know, competition can spark things that also lead to later collaboration. And some of our astronauts during that period after the shuttle retired launched from that same launch pad. Where that launched, where Yuri Gagarin launched, one of you may have launched from that launch pad, but you both launched from that launch pad. And so it's just amazing what that can grow into later. And I don't know if you want to speak to it, but also it has given us a chance to lead in some of those interesting spaces, those competition relationships that have grown into collaborative relationships. But we also have a leading role in that, and we continue to lead, and we have some great partners that we get to go far together with.
Yeah, I will, if it's okay, Victor, since you invited me. But I do think it's important, especially as a non-American, to reflect that back. And in any situation, it's not that someone is always the leader, but there's a leader and a follower. And in our office, we talk a lot about leadership and followership. And in this mission, there was one commander, and it was Reed. But there was a lot of leadership and a lot of followership, and there's a lot of space left for all of us to lead in certain moments when it was just our time to do that and when it made sense. And I think it is important that just to reflect on the tremendous space leadership that we've seen from the United States, because we know the United States could go to the moon by themselves. They don't have to bring all the Artemis Accord signatories with them, but it's a deliberate choice. And I think that's important, and it's important to shine a light on that leadership. And I will say, having watched it for many years, it's also a heavy load. It can be easy to say that they reap a lot of the rewards, and they do within their country and their industry, and it's amazing to watch, but it's also a heavy load. The leader often eats last. The leader often has to pick up the slack. The final integration, when something's missing, when you've tried to put the puzzle together and then you get to near the end and a piece is missing, it's often the leader who picks it up and puts in the final piece or creates that final piece. And I've seen that over and over again. And I think it is just worth a round of applause for the United States for deliberately choosing to bring us along.
I just want to make it very clear to this audience, I did no picking up of any slack on that spacecraft.
You did also ask about what does it look like in the future, and we heard a few words about that. And to me, it's really no surprise that so many countries are angling to get back to the moon. It's industrial benefits, it's scientific benefits, technological benefits, national preeminence, leading. That's really the question, will we lead or will we follow? Because what does it look like? It looks like science that you can only do on the far side, which isn't just geology, by the way, about how do solar systems form, how do other solar systems form in other places and potentially life. It's not just about that. It's about radio astronomy. It's about partial gravity science. It's about resources. It's about showing that we can live anywhere. And ultimately, it's about learning about ourselves. So these bases, they will do all of that. And the cool thing about living now in an era just over 50 years after we touched base and came back that amazing time in the Apollo era, we're ready to do that now with the amount of resources and technology that we have available to go and responsibly stay.
So Artemis 3 is next year, 2027. Right, boss? There we go. And then we're looking, and that will be actual boots on the moon. No, that will be, paint that picture.
So the next step we need before we land, well, now I'm doing Jared's job, so I got to be very careful. The next step that we need before we go land on the moon is we have realized that we need a launch cadence. We need to keep this vehicle going. We need to get more flights under our belt to learn more about this spacecraft, but we need to also be able to rendezvous and dock with our commercial providers. So SpaceX, Blue Origin are the first two who have stepped up to do these human landings on the lunar surface. So in 2027, we're going to launch 4 of our friends, and they will go do these docking missions in low Earth orbit, and that will pave the way. Once we know that we can get these commercial providers into low Earth orbit and we can find them, rendezvous with them, and dock with them, it is a good bit more complicated than what we tried to do in Apollo because we want to go to stay. And this is the architecture that will get that done. So once we know we can do that, to me, it is just all green flags all the way to the lunar surface.
Wow. So the next one will be docking.
Yep, you're not wrong.
And then the next one is
Boots on the moon.
Boots on the moon.
Artemis 4.
There we go, Artemis 4.
Yep. We snuck another mission in there because we just love to fly.
There we go.
And learn
Yeah, why
things.
not?
And we can.
And so the next 4 for 3 have been selected. Are they in training or no?
Imminently.
Do you know? Do we have any secrets? Do we want to make any news? Okay, all right. What advice would you have for them? And then I'll let you guys go. They've been up since 4 a.m. this morning, inspiring the world, inspiring the country, and we have a birthday boy to get back to his family. It's 39, right? 39 years old? Yeah.
Yes, it is now.
You look it. But what advice would you give to that next crew? And then really, we have so many future members of the Space Force, future members of NASA that are here. I mean, this is the biggest recruiting drive, I think, you could possibly have. They're inspired by people doing hard things and doing them big and boldly. But we'll just wrap up with that. What advice in terms of paying it forward? God blessed you with this amazing opportunity, and how would you pay it forward to the next four?
I'm happy to share something that actually was shared with us from a crew who flew a developmental mission, a first spacecraft flight, and they said, we wish we had asked more questions. And so I would recommend to them, ask as many questions and ask more questions. And then I will connect it to something that I'll share with the young folks is, I think curiosity is there and you ask lots of questions, but also put as much effort into listening to the answers, the ones that you think you're going to get and the ones that you just get as a bonus. I think that's really important.
We should all, other advice, other little nuggets?
I can go ahead. Something that Reed did very intentionally was he carved out space for each of us on the crew to be challenged. And there are different ways you could do that, but that's some advice that I would pass on that I feel worked really well to make that intentional space for others. And that kind of hooks back to something I should have said in my last remarks is, you know, when the U.S. leads a space program and they carve out space for all these other countries to participate, there's a choice in how you do that. And the choice they've made is to allow these other countries to participate in a way that lifts them up inside their own country. And I've just seen the response in Canada has been so extraordinary from an industrial point of view, but also just a reminder of what we as a country are capable of. And then that reflects how we show up for each other around the world and has that ripple effect that you get in a pond. And that's a really beautiful thing.
You know, you mentioned future crews and the people in this room. I think that's one and the same. You are the future crews if you're not already the present crews. And something that we learned on this mission was leading with your values, to figure out who you are first before you figure out what you want to do. It's not an accident that we named our spacecraft Integrity, and that's because that was our guiding light from the very beginning. When we are in our integrity and we're leading with integrity, we know we'll be doing the right thing. The technical, that comes along with it because you want to give back to your crewmates and to your mission. Know who you are.
Well said. From the woman who's gone deepest into space than any other woman in the world. I'll just share with you this. I remember I was probably 8, 9 years old and seeing a talk given by Buzz Aldrin and seeing a talk given by Neil Armstrong, how inspired I was. I ended up jumping out of planes rather than launching in rockets, but how inspiring that was for me. And I'm looking at these young faces, and you are that next generation. It's just what an honor to have you here. Let's please give a round of applause at the United Nations with the Artemis II astronauts.
Thank you all so much.